Naughty But Nice podcast host Rob Shooter is with us now to talk more about the life and legacy of this country music legend. You know, when his songs would come on in the car, Rob, these are the ones I belt out. I mean, time and time again, I can name probably a dozen Toby Keith songs that I just love. What are you hearing from your sources in the country music world about his life, his legacy, and his impact?
Well, first of all, I want to be in the car with you when you're singing these songs. They're anthems, aren't they? These are huge anthems. And you're right, after 9/11, we all really rallied around him. Sometimes the country community can be quite insular. And I think after you have hits like him, you really cross over. Dare I say, he might have been one of the first Taylor Swift. She started as a country artist too. So that's what his impact is here. He touched so many different people. His music, we all know it. We might not think we know it, but we do know those songs. People in the country community and the music community are really sad today. They were just celebrating, 24 hours ago at the Grammys. And now this news came out. We knew he was sick. We knew he was sick. We knew he didn't have long, but nevertheless, when it finally happens, it's still really sad.
Yeah. Do we know how long, Rob, he had been battling stomach cancer, how long he'd been struggling with his health?
He talked about it for the first time in 2021, so he acknowledged it a couple of years ago. I think by the time that he was ready to talk about it, it was something that he had become very accustomed to living with. So I'm told about 5 or 6 years ago at least is when this stuff started to happen. Obviously, we didn't know, nobody knows how long they have. And I'm told he tried to live life to the fullest, right until the very end.
Right. And I don't know much about his personal life. I mean, I know about his music and his artistry. What do we know about his family, Rob? Was he open about that?
Yeah, he's a family man, absolutely a family man. Married, 3 children, 4 grandchildren. They were all with him. He was surrounded by family when he passed. And also, too, let's be honest here, he was very, very open about his political views. Later on in life, this might have got him in trouble with some people, but he was one of those celebrities who believed that he had a voice, he had a presence, he was famous, and he certainly felt that his opinion mattered in politics, and he never shied away from standing up with what he believed in. He was a patriot, a proud American. Even if you disagreed with him, he certainly made his voice heard.
Yeah, and it was really moving after 9/11 when our nation's heart was breaking, and he came out with Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue. I mean, even still today, that song gives me chills. I had to look up when the CMA Awards were. They were just in November. Was there any mention or tribute to him then, knowing he was battling so severely?
No, because I think he was being quite private about it. Now we're going to see the floodgates open. So now all the country awards that are coming up, all the big events, I think there'll be tributes to him. He was a major figure, sold 40 million albums. Those type of numbers, the young pop stars today would kill to do those sort of numbers. So 40 million albums. His music, though, will live on forever.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the song titles. As Good As I Once Was. He did one with Willie Nelson. I'm trying to remember. Was that Beer for My Horses? Can't remember. Right. Yeah.
And to get the endorsement of Willie Nelson, the godfather, so to speak.
Yeah, no.
If Dolly's the godmother, Willie certainly is the godfather. He was loved within the community. I had interviewed him a couple of times, and he was gruff and grumpy and delightful, and everything that you think he would be, he was. Look at these pictures you're showing him.
Yeah, Carrie Underwood.
So all generations loved him, from literally Dolly Parton to Carrie Underwood.
Yeah, but he was just the kind of guy, I don't know, Rob, that I felt like you'd want to have a beer with, right? Just sit down at the bar and, yeah, a little gruff, a little rough around the edges, but that's what made Toby Keith Toby Keith. Thanks, Rob Shooter, for being with us to celebrate him and all his great music that he leaves us with.
Yeah, rest in power, rest in power.
Amen. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.